Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of Grim Scenarios. I'm your host, Milk, and with me, as always, my partner in crime, Emma. Hello, Emma.
Oh, Milk, how's it going for you this week?
Yeah, it's another fine Wednesday. We've had a bit of stuff going on. We've been playing a lot of Clocktower, and now it's time to try to trick each other once again.
No, we're coming off, of course, a holiday here in America, which happened yesterday.
Yes, that holiday was yesterday, Fireworks
For a
Day.
lot of people, this is a wonderful holiday. For dog owners like me, it's mostly a comfort your dogs as they shriek in terror holiday.
Pretty much the same for me as well. Yes, my dogs are not fans of Fireworks Day. I heard that some cities are now doing drone-based light shows rather than fireworks for the holiday, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting. I don't know if my city did that because I wasn't paying attention, but I'm sure it'd be really nice if they did.
It was pretty boomy here, so I'm going to assume that we did not. Based on the truckload of fireworks my brother sent me a picture of out of the back of his truck, I know some fireworks were set off.
Anyway, we're back on the saddle. We talked a little bit about what we wanted to do, and we thought it would be best to take another visit at Sects and Violets, just because there's a lot of characters on Sects and Violets that we think are pretty tricky to play. Like, my personal opinion, which I don't know if Milk shares, is that Sects and Violets is the hardest of the base 3 scripts to play for either team. Particularly in person, I think it's incredibly hard for both teams. Online, it's a little bit easier for the good team just because the tracking of information is easier online than it is in person, but it's a very hard script to play. There's a lot of characters that have very difficult information sets to parse, and the presence of the Vortox makes everything even a bit trickier. So we are going to back to do Sects and Violets for this week. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to be playing good. Milk will play evil.
As always, back to red. Emma, we're gonna start with you, and the folks can see already that you're going to be playing as the mathematician, which was a very highly requested character for us to do a scenario for, and for us to talk a little bit about. So, before we jump into the scenario more deeply, do you just want to say a couple of things about the mathematician as a role, kind of what it does, and maybe talk a little bit about why people find this role challenging to deal with?
Yeah, so the mathematician's role reads each night you learn how many players' abilities worked abnormally since dawn due to another character's ability. And this is a very hard role for a lot of people to grasp. There's a lot of things that make this weird. First of all, worked abnormally is a phrase that does not appear on any other character token. I believe it's defined in the rulebook somewhere, but it's not like if you're just learning by playing, worked abnormally is not a term that makes much sense to you. Second of all, people, I think, want the mathematician to be something it's not necessarily, which is that I think they want the mathematician to be counting the number of poisoning or drunkening effects in play, and that's not what the mathematician is doing.
No, it's much better than that, right?
It's much better than that. Very secretly, what the mathematician is doing on Sects and Violets, where, of course, its home script is on Sects and Violets, the mathematician is mostly saying, this is probably your demon type. And as we go through the scenario, I'm going to talk a little bit about why that's true. But the basic thing is the 4 demons on Sects and Violets, each will produce 4 different patterns in their math numbers. And I have built out spreadsheets to help me understand how these patterns work, what numbers they can trigger, what order they can trigger those numbers in, what nights they can trigger those numbers on. So when you're a mathematician, there's a few non-demon characters you want to be really looking out for to try to track when they're proccing your math number. There's only 3 that can, and one is very obvious. The other 2 are a little harder to find. But once you've adjusted for those 3, what you're really doing is figuring out the demon type. And once you've figured out what the demon type is, you can start using those math numbers to lock in on where evil players are sitting on the grim.
And I think just in a broader sense, one thing people may find challenging about the mathematician specifically is something that they find challenging about other roles that get information about what's going on with other people's information, right? Math gets what we would call meta information, information about other information. General is like that. The new High Priestess character is a little bit like that. There's a few roles in Blood on the Clocktower that are pretty reliant on getting information from other players. And I would say that's a piece of mathematician that makes it at least an interesting social character as well, because you are reliant on people giving you their information so you can figure out what's happened. So, with that in mind, let's go over to the Grimoire. Yeah,
Before we start, let's go through the 7 characters that can change the math number.
sure, that sounds good.
Or there's actually 6. So there's the 4 demon types. One of them, the Fengu, can't actually change the math number.
Correct.
But it's important for thinking through your math numbers to consider math, and Fengu is one of the math relevant characters, so we'll count that. The Vigor Mortis can change the math number, never on night 1, only on night 2 moving forward. The Nodashi can change the math number. Now, the Nodashi can trigger the math on night 1. It's much less common than you'd think it would be just from reading the Nodashi's token. Most Sects Violet characters will not trigger a math on night 1, but the Nodashi can. The Vortox, of course, will shoot the math number really high and then force the storyteller to lie about the math number. The Sweetheart can proc the math number at some point of the game, which the good team should be able to track. If you're a dead Sweetheart, you should not be hiding, because if there's a mathematician, they need to know that the number has happened. The Philosopher can proc the math number. And of course, the Pit Hag can proc the math number. And if the Pit Hag has procced the math number, that'll be very obvious to you as the mathematician, and you should be adjusting how you think of your information because of it. But that's it. Those are the only characters that can affect the math number.
Okay, that seems pretty helpful. So with that in mind, why don't we go to the Grim and see what kind of numbers you can sort out, Emma? All right, Emma, you are the mathematician, as we've already said, and you are sitting in seat number 7 there at the bottom of the Grim. On night 1, the storyteller arrives in your cottage and informs you that your mathematician number is 0.
That is completely expected.
Okay.
Like I was just saying, a Vigor Mortis and a Fengu cannot change the math number night 1. A Philosopher can, but probably shouldn't. If the Philosopher is doing things that proc the math number night 1, that's rude of the Philosopher. They should probably be waiting a night before they do it.
Okay, fair enough.
The Nadashi can proc a math number night 1, but there's a very few set of characters and they have to be sat in particular positions for the Nadashi to proc it. And of course, the Vortox can, but if the Vortox does, the storyteller has to lie about it, in which case they're probably going to give you a 0 because that's what the other 3 demons you should expect.
Right, so your night 1 information doesn't eliminate any demons.
It just tells me everything is proceeding normally so far.
All right. So with that in mind, you all wake up for the day, and you have a few chats. And I'm just going to give you some information because I want to get us into a later day where you have more math information to try to parse through. So I'm just going to give you some information that you gather throughout the next couple of days. Most people are pretty cagey on day 1. This is a circle of fairly experienced players that you're sitting in, and so nobody's really throwing their information out there. But you do find out that the player sitting next to you in seat 8 is going to hard claim seamstress to you and tell you that they checked the players in seat 11 and in seat 5 and got a yes. So those are seamstress night 1s. Seamstress.
Perfect.
Night 1. And I'll just put those on the scrim for the nice folks at home. Seamstress night 1. All right. You don't really trust the claims you got from any other people, but the player in seat 4 claimed to be the Klutz when you suggested that perhaps they would like to be killed early so that they have the best possible chance of picking a good player. They seemed hesitant about that. And yeah, that's pretty much what you've got.
Okay.
During nominations that day, several people nominate. The player in seat 4 nominates the player in seat 11. The player in seat 2 nominates the player in seat 3. The player in seat 11 counternoms the player in seat 4. And then the player in seat 6 nominates the player in seat 8, who is executed and dies.
All right, so that was seat 4, seat 11, seat 2, and seat 6 nominated.
All have nominated.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And who was the execution?
The execution was seat 8, who's sitting next to you.
Okay.
All right, so the following night, on night 2, you wake up, and the storyteller tells you that the mathematician number for tonight is a 2.
Interesting.
So that's a big jump in math number. What are your thoughts about the big jump in math number?
So the first thing I need to do is I need to figure out if there's a philosopher or sweetheart who died. If either of those characters died, or if the sweetheart died, or if there's a philosopher in play who picked someone who's in play, that can explain one or both my procs. If neither of those things are true, though, the jump from a 0 to 2 tells me specifically either this is an Odashi game, I'm Vigor Poisoned, or that it's a Vortex game that the storyteller wants to look like an Odashi game. In either the Vigor Poison or the Vortex world, it's making me look at Odashi world, because a Fengu always generates a math number of 0. A Vigor Mortis can only ever increase the math number by 1 proc at a time, so it can't go from a 0 to a 2, it has to go from a 0 to a 1. So it's only the Nodashi that causes the math number to jump from 0 to 2. So this is the jump from 0 to 2 is something that indicates the demon type is likely a Nodashi, but I do need to check my boxes and try to see if I can track down a sweetheart or a philosopher to confirm that this is a Nodashi game, or a Vortex game that's being made to look like a Nodashi game.
All right. Well, everyone wakes up, and the player in seat 4 has died. The player in seat 4 claims Klutz and picks you.
Okay.
And the storyteller says the game continues.
All right.
You have a few options for conversations today, and I'm going to let you run a couple of conversations today because there's information you need to find. So I will leave it out there. You can talk to the player in seat 10, seat 2, or seat 5.
Okay. I don't know whether any of these people are a philosopher. It's unlikely there's a dead sweetheart because seat 4 claimed Klutz. In seat 8, I trust is the seamstress, so seat 10, seat 2, and seat 5, I'll just pick seat 5, because seat 5 is probably good.
All right, you talk to the player in seat 5, and the player in seat 5 is a little cagey, not really excited about giving out their information, but eventually you manage to pry a sage claim out of them.
Okay. I asked them if they've heard of a philosopher, because that's most of what I'm interested in finding at the moment.
No, nobody's told me about a philosopher or that they are the philosopher. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to go Philo Sage. That's pretty silly. Why would anyone ever do that?
Okay.
So yeah, they haven't heard of a philosopher. They said that they say that the player in seat 12 told them that they were an outsider.
Okay. Good. All right, I'll go back to town.
Yep, and they sort of trust you because you were Klutz picked. So
All right.
all right, so you go back to town, and we'll get you another couple of conversations in here. You can talk to 9, 3, or 12.
I'll talk to C12's an outsider. They're probably the barber or the sweetheart. I don't really need to talk to them right now because, like I said, I really need to hunt down whether there's a philosopher. So I will pick seat 3.
You pick seat 3. All right, the player in seat 3 says to you that since you were Klutz picked, they're going to accept that you are probably a good player and tell you that they're the town crier and they got a no yesterday.
Okay. So that's interesting. A town crier no on 4 nominations is pretty unlucky for the evil team.
I would agree.
So that's something that does not strike me as likely to be true.
Okay.
Either they're evil or Since we do have reason to believe this is a no dashi game because of the jump from 0 to 2, there's a solid chance they're no dashi poisoned. If they're no dashi poisoned, that puts a pretty fine line on potential demons.
Yeah,
So that's
it's
really
narrowing it
useful
down quite a
information
bit.
for me.
They ask what you are.
Oh, I'm the mathematician.
Oh, okay, great.
I tell them I'm looking for a philosopher, so if they've heard of a philosopher, please send them my way.
All right. They will tell you if they hear of a philosopher, but no one has claimed it to them at this time.
Okay.
All right. So that's probably enough conversations. You can have one more if you'd like, but I don't think there's any more information to give out right now. So you go back to town. Do you want to make any nominations at this point in the game?
I would vote on seat 1 or seat 2 today.
You would vote on seat 1 or seat 2 today. How come?
Uh, the town crier information is, like I said, unlikely. If no minions nominated, which is a big if. The 4 people nominated were 6, 4, 2, and 11. 11 and 5 are almost certainly on the same team because of the seamstress, yes. Unless it's Vortox World, and we'll deal with Vortox Worlds later. Because I'm sat next to a seamstress, I'm sort of insulated from night 1, no dashi poisoning on that side. So for a town crier, for a minion not to have nominated yesterday, the minions have to be between 10, 9, and 1 specifically, which is just very unlucky. Or I guess C12 as the claimed outsider. So 4 seats with both of the minions, it's fairly unlikely. Like, it's highly likely that a minion did in fact nominate yesterday on 4 nominations. Just based off the fact that I know I didn't nominate. It's unlikely seat 4 is a minion. It's unlikely seat 8 is a minion. It's just highly likely that if one of these 4 people was in fact a minion, and if one of these 4 people was in fact a minion, seat 1 and seat 2 are looking like very strong no dashi candidates.
Well, the player in seat 10 nominates the player in seat 6. Urgently nominates the player in seat 6 and says, I think this is almost certainly a Vortox game, and I don't know where the demon is, but my information says that it is strongly a Vortox game.
Okay.
So they nominate the player in seat 6. The vote goes around. There's not quite enough votes to get the player in seat 6 on the block. The player in seat 5 nominates the player in seat 12.
Yeah.
And that execution does get enough votes to go through, and we'll say no one else. We'll say no one else nominates today. Actually,
Alright. So my push on seats 1 and 2 fails.
your push on seats 1 and 2 fails. Yep, there are not enough votes on seats 1 or 2.
Because I nominated, let's say, seat 1.
Okay, you nominate seat 1, and let's say seat 3 will vote. Seat 6 will vote, and seat 10 will vote. And you, of course, which is 4, which is not enough.
Okay.
So seat 12 is executed and dies, and everybody goes to sleep. During the night phase here, let me put a couple more things in the Grim. So we did talk to this town crier over here, who seems to have been honest with you. Yeah.
They might be lying. Like I said, if they're evil, that's fine. But if they're good, it's very unlikely that either seat 1 or seat 2 is an Odashi.
Yeah, so the storyteller is going to come to you tonight and give you a 1.
Okay.
Yep. And so you wake up to discover that the player in seat 10 has died.
Okay.
We're not going to simulate a whole lot more of this. We will go through another day, but I'm going to move the game forward a little bit, because you've gotten some information, and so you've got a night 1 0, a night 2 2, and a night 3 1. Several days later, the player in seat 2 has been executed. Let's say the following day, you managed to get the player in seat 2 executed, and that night the player in seat 11 dies, you receive another 1. The town crier is now out with their information, and it appears that there just are no minions in this town.
Okay. Have I found a philosopher at any point?
No one is claiming philosopher, but the following day you execute the player in seat 5, and that night the player in seat 3 dies. And the next day, the player in seat 5 says, I was the snake charmer, I have cleared all of the living players.
Interesting.
What do you suppose is going on?
Did seat 12 come out as the sweetheart?
Yes, C12 came out as the sweetheart. I should probably put that in. I'll put in all the dead players too, just to help you out here. Seat 12 came out as the sweetheart. Seat 11, after being killed, claimed to be the mutant. Seat 10 is the artist who asked a Vortox-proof question and got the wrong, or asked a Vortox question, do 2 plus 2 equal 4, and got the answer, no, 2 plus 2 does not equal 4. Question has been used. Seat 9 is claiming to be the Oracle. Seat 6 is claiming to... What is seat 6 claiming to be? Seat 6 is claiming to be the Flower Girl. And they say that they have a yes isolated on seat 9 and seat 1. They know that seat 9 and seat 1 are... One of seat 9 and seat 1 is the demon. Seat 1 is claiming to be the Clockmaker with a 3.
It's seat 2 claiming?
Seat 2 is claiming to be the Philosopher who used their ability to take Artist.
What night?
On night 3, and asked if the demon was seated between seats 4 and 9, and got a yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a problem here.
What's the problem?
We have 3 outsider claims, and a math number that's greater than 0. Are all 3 of these outsiders claiming to have never been pit-hagged?
None of the outsiders is claiming to have been pit-hagged. The player in seat 4 continues to claim to be the Klutz.
And seat 11 and seat 4 died in the night?
Seat 11 and seat 4 both died in the night.
Whereas we executed seat 12.
You executed seat 12. Who is definitely claiming to be the sweetheart and claimed to be the sweetheart to the player in seat 5 on day 1.
Okay. Well, seat 12 is a minion then.
Okay.
There's no claim here that would be responsible for the 0 to 2 jump, which rules out Vig.
I agree. I don't think it's possible that this is a Vigor Mortis game.
It's not possible for it to be a Fangu game for the same reason. The 0 to 2 rules out Fangu.
Correct.
So, and if the claimed philosopher is claiming to have gone after the artist asked their question, the only explanation for a jump from 0 to 2 is Nodashi or Vortox. Since neither Nodashi nor Vortox has a reason to kill their own minions in the night, seat 12 is not the sweetheart, they are a minion.
Okay.
Or the Vortox or Nodashi has done something extremely weird.
The seat 12 was executed during the day. Yeah.
Yeah. So they are just the minion here. Or they're mad. Or someone has Sarah locked them as the sweetheart. Or someone has Sarah locked one of these dead outsiders as an outsider. Most likely they're just a minion, so we're just going to put a minion token on them. Has anyone ever said they were mad at any point in this game?
No.
And no one has died from a witch?
No one has died from a witch. There is no evil twin claim. No one has claimed to be pit-hagged.
Alright, so there's probably someone who's Sarah locked somewhere. That could clear seats 11, seat 12, or seat 4.
Okay.
I will, in fact, tell seat 12 if you're Saramat, you should break today.
Okay. The player in seat 4 says, I'm not the klutz, I'm the dreamer, and is executed and dies, and everyone goes to sleep.
Okay, there we go.
The following day, you wake up dead.
Okay.
The player in seat 6 says that they are the Philo who took Snake Charmer and has chosen both of the remaining living players and has not jumped.
That's impossible. Seat 6 is almost certainly the Saranovus.
All right.
And that's just because we know the Saranovus is alive. We know they were active yesterday. Philo's a double claim with seat 2.
How does a math number with a Snake Charmer work, Emma? Just out of curiosity for the folks at home.
It only triggers if it hits the demon.
All right.
Like, seat 6 could be telling the truth, but seat 6 can't be poisoned by seat 9 because I'm in the way. They can't be poisoned by seat 1 because of where the outsiders are sitting. Seat 6 has to be lying because the Vortex won't stop a Philo Snake Charmer. Seat 6 is just lying. There's no way for them to be telling the truth. They could be the demon. They could be specifically in Nodashi poisoning me and seat 5, because seat 5 is also claiming to be the Snake Charmer who picked everyone. No, actually, I think that's pretty likely, now that I think about it. Clockmaker 3 runs from seat 6 to seat 9. Seat 6 is a Nodashi poisoning me and the Snake Charmer. My math numbers are wrong. Seat 9 is the Saranovus. We have a dead witch somewhere. There's a problem with seat 10's information here. But they can be Philo drunk by seat 2.
Seat 10's information seems wrong.
Yeah, seat 10's information is wrong. Fundamentally, seat 6 is lying. It's mechanically impossible for them to be telling the truth.
Based on the math numbers.
Based on the math numbers. All right, what knights do they claim to have Snake Charmed seats 1 and seats 9?
They claim to have Snake Charmed seat 1 last night and seat 9 the night before.
And what day did seat 5 die?
Day 4.
Oh, we executed them, right?
You executed them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so they're not vigor poisoned.
Correct. Not vigor poisoned.
Yeah, so they're just lying. It's literally impossible for them to be Nodashi poisoned. They've had to have picked the demon if they're telling the truth about being the Philo Snake Charmer. They could also be mad. They did say they were the Flower Girl yesterday.
Is there any other possibility?
No, they're either mad or they're evil. Those are the only two possibilities. I guess they could be Sweetheart drunk. If they're Sweetheart drunk, that works, I guess. What day does C10 claim to have asked their artist question?
C10 claims to have asked their artist question on day 1.
Day 1?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the seamstress claims to have acted on night 1. So that can't be a jump from 0 to 2. Those would be on different nights. Seat 9 can't be a Nodashi poison, seats 10 and seat 8.
So where's the demon, Emma?
Yeah, I'm just going through it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't. Calm down. Who are the day 1 nominations again?
Sure. The day 1 nominations were 4, 2, 11, and 6.
4, 2, 6, and 11.
Mm-hmm.
They got a no.
They got a no on 4, 2, 6, and 11.
All right. What's the oracle information?
The oracle claims that there is 1 dead evil.
That tracks. That should be correct. Because we know there's a living demon and a living Saranovus. Seat 2 we executed, right?
Seat 2 was executed.
Seat 6 is a liar. Seat 5 also claims to have snake charmed everyone, right?
Correct.
When did they see? Can you give me the sequence that they claim to have snake charmed people in?
Probably. Let's see. They started snake charming on the player in seat 4, and then they worked to the player in seat 3, and then the player in seat 2, and then the player in seat 1.
They snake charmed the player in seat 1, seat 12 was dead.
Yes.
From execution. Okay. The solve that works here is seat 1 is a Nodashi, seat 2 is a minion, seat 9 is a minion. Seat 9 is the Serenova, seat 3 is Sarah Mad right now. They're the Flower Girl. They've isolated it to seat 1 and seat 9. That's sober and healthy information. Seat 10 is poisoned by seat 1. Seat 3 is poisoned by seat 1, which explains the town crier no on a day when seat 2 nominated. Seat 2 was executed, right?
Correct.
Yeah, this is the solve that works. With the Sweetheart trunking the Snake Charmer, that procs my math number one night. The other proc is on the Town Crier, I think. The 2 is the Artist and the Town Crier. That tracks with all the information. What's the Dreamer information?
The Dreamer is confirming the Seamstress.
Yeah, that tracks with the information. I don't think anything else does.
Well, Emma, I got great news for you. You decide to tell the player in seat 6 to push on the player in seat 1, and they're executed and die, and congratulations goes to the good team, who have executed the Nodashi sitting in seat 1, poisoning the Town Crier in seat 3 through the Pit Hag, who was just a little bit unlucky and tried to make outsiders that were already in play, and the Artist in seat 10 through the Sweetheart and the Mutant. Those Nodashi tentacles, quite long. The Serenovus in seat 9, telling the truth that there are 2 evil players left alive, of course, and your friend the Seamstress clearing the Mutant against the Snake Charmer in seat 5. You, of course, the Mathematician. The Dreamer in seat 4, who was Sarah-locked as the Klutz for the entire game, and came out on your recommendation. And the player in seat 6, who is, in fact, the Philo Snake Charmer.
Okay.
Who drunked the Snake Charmer, and unfortunately, just the Philo and Philo Snake Charmer information never picked the demon when it would have lined up with you getting info.
Okay, so the Philo was Sweetheart drunk?
The Philo was Sweetheart drunk in the end.
Okay, cool.
Yep. And that was your grim scenario, Emma, which you resolved quite well using those math numbers very effectively, and some positioning as well. Because once you figure out whose poison and whose information doesn't seem right, it does make it quite a bit easier to track down a Nodashi specifically.
Yeah. And like you said, like I said at the start, the jump from 0 to 2 should put you in Nodashi world as a mathematician. You can get to the Vortops world once you've ruled out all the Nodashi worlds, but the 0 to 2 should send you that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty right. I think, when you look at Sects and Violets especially, math being able to solve for a specific demon is one of its strongest abilities. Maybe Nodashi is the easier one to sort of figure out in some ways, but I think we didn't use Nodashi the last time we went through Sects and Violets, and I think it's worth kind of pointing out how critical it is to not expect a Nodashi to just give a 2 every night.
Exactly, no. It's very unlikely. Because people are dying, because most characters don't act night 1, the only characters that act night 1 are the Clockmaker, the Dreamer, the Snake Charmer, the Mathematician, and the Philosopher. The Philosopher only can trigger a math if it specifically picks one of those first 4 characters. The math doesn't track its own information. The Snake Charmer can only trigger the math if it specifically hit the demon. So for the Nodashi to generate a Clock 2 on night 1, or a Math 2 on night 1, that's a pretty unlucky Nodashi because they're sat in between a Clockmaker and a Dreamer, and the Mathematician already knows it.
Yep. And all you have to do is find the Clockmaker or the Dreamer.
And then you can figure out who's in between them. That's probably your Nodashi.
Yep. Might have to move a couple of spaces for outsiders.
Minions and outsiders.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Clockmaker and the Dreamer and you pick the person who's closest in between them both, who's not claiming outsider, you probably found the Nodashi.
And this is one of the reasons why, Mathematician can be extremely powerful, right? But I think people kind of dismiss it as a middling role at times because its information is difficult to parse. You have to put in the work.
Yeah, and I think specifically what people do is they try to track it as just the Mathematician counts the number of poisoning or drunkening effects in play. And that's not what the Mathematician is doing.
Yeah.
Like, even with a Nodashi, you're going to get a lot of zeros and ones.
Well, that was pretty fun. I enjoyed watching you puzzle through that. We'll take our little break here. I think we'll take a nice little pause, and then we'll come back, and I get to do what I do best: be evil. So we'll see you guys in a minute.
All right.
Pretty sure they can hear us, right?
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
I'm still recording.
I really need some coffee.
Welcome back, everyone, to Grim Scenarios, episode 7. Today we are doing some more Sects and Violets, just go through some of the, again, trickier characters out there that we didn't hit on our first time around. So we just went through a mathematician scenario, and now we're switching back to the evil team, and Milk is going to be playing as the Pit Hag in seat 11.
The Pit Hag in seat 11 sounds like fun. Do love a good bit of pit hagging.
So we're going to start on night 2, because that's the first time the Pit Hag acts.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just here in the herb garden. I'll just give you a short rundown of what happened on day 1 from your perspective.
Sounds great.
So you talked to seat 12, who told you they were the flower girl, and everyone voted yesterday. You talked to seat 4, your fellow minion. They told you they were the witch. They told you seat 1, your demon, is a Vortox. And they told you the bluffs were Snake Charmer, Savant, and Philosopher, and the one that was left for you was Savant.
Okay. Just making sure you said seat 4 is the witch.
Seat 4 is the witch, seat 1 the Vortox.
Seat 1 the Vortox. And I am apparently bluffing Savant.
Or you can go off script, but Savant is the bluff that you have been given.
Mm-hmm.
You've been told your demon is bluffing Philosopher, and the witch is taking Snake Charmer.
Demon is bluffing Philo. Okay.
You learned that. You then talked to seat 9. They told you they were the seamstress.
Okay.
They told you they got a no between seats 6 and seat 8.
Seats 6 and 8.
Which, of course, tracks with the fact that this is a Vortox game.
Vortox game, yep.
And you talked to seat 8, who claimed to be the town crier.
Seat 8 claimed to be the town crier. All right.
At the execution phase, seat 5 immediately announced that it was a Vortox game, demanded everyone execute them so they would trust them, and all 12 players voted on seat 5, leading to their execution.
Just put artist there.
And let's talk about that reader that's an artist for a second.
Sure.
Why do you think that player's an artist?
So there's not a ton of roles that are going to be able to make a call like that on Sects and Violets. None of the outsiders can, so I don't have to worry about that. A dreamer might be able to, but a dreamer would not be in a hurry to get killed necessarily, because it's possible that the demon could change, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Snake Charmer certainly wouldn't be able to. The math wouldn't have a number that would say that. Flower Girl and Town Crier need to wait till after noms and voting to get that information. Oracles don't get information night 1. Savant information would be very difficult to track. I mean, unless the storyteller's really not doing a great job, Savant information would be difficult to track that early. I already know where there's a seamstress.
And you know there's no Savant in play.
I know there's... Oh, yeah, right. There's no Savant in play. It could be a Philo who took artist, but again, it's day 1, so why would a Philo do that on day 1? Juggler doesn't have information, Sage doesn't have information. It's literally just an artist who has asked a Vortoxy artist question to try to figure out if it's a Vortox. That's it. Easy.
Yeah.
And when everybody votes, and there's a no, the demon did not vote, it's going to be pretty obvious that it's a Vortox game.
Yeah. Let's talk about, so the art, you think C5 is the artist.
C5 is probably
Let's
the artist.
talk a little bit about the asking of so-called Vortox questions by artists. It's not our focus this episode, but it is something I put in the scenario so we could slander these types of questions.
Let's think about what value finding out it's a Vortox on day 1 has. You're always going to play around Vortox in Sects and Violets. You're not just going to not kill somebody every day until you know what the demon is pretty clearly. And that often means mid to late game. Artist questions are exceptionally strong information. even on a script with a Vortox, you can ask almost anything. It's much like when we talked about gossip. You craft your own information. You decide what the meaning of what you get back is going to, what value it's going to have. You can be very precise. You can say, is this character, is this player on the good team, right? You can eliminate sections of the Grim, which is a very popular thing to do, right? You can determine if a role is in play or not, right? There are tons and tons of things you can do with an artist question. Figuring out it's a Vortox right away does causes two problems. The first is your extremely adaptable information has been used up to discover something you might have figured out later anyway and might not have been that important to know. And it also means that the evil team can work around that if you just come out with that information, artist. So now that I know that you know it's a Vortox game, well, first of all, it means I can change the demon pretty much at will if I want to. Because since you already know it's a Vortox game, if I change it, you're not going to be able to track it very easily because your information from before was all just wrong. So that's a whole problem. If I change the demon in the middle of the game now, it's quite strong. If I don't change the demon, but the evil team can fake a demon change somehow, that might be a possibility too. So there's a lot that the evil team can do with just having that information out there. Um, it's not necessarily, in my opinion, the best use of an artist question.
Yeah, no, I think I'd agree with that. As I said, this isn't here to slander us. And as we saw in just the last scenario, where you also had an artist ask a Vortox question, sometimes they're just no dashi poisoned.
Yeah, and the artist could just literally be getting just false information to make it look like a Vortox game.
When having nothing that tells them that. Well, yeah, so like it's a true waste of your ability, I would say.
Yep.
You're like, especially on this player count, maybe on like a 7 player Sects Violets,
Yeah, in a smaller game.
in a smaller, in you don't have the time you have to discover it's a Vortex naturally. Like maybe just doing that day one is useful for the artist on a 7 player game. But on a 12 player game, on a 13 player game, on a 14 player game, on a 15 player game, the sort of game sizes you'll see normally online or in conventions,
Yeah.
11, 10, you're gonna solve Vortox with the information rules in Sects Violets.
Don't be in a hurry to throw away your artist question to find out it's a
You can
Vortox.
use your artist question on something that's much more valuable, even in a Vortox game.
Especially in a Vortox game, because you know the information is going to be wrong.
Anyway, so good. We talked about that. So the good team knows the demon type.
Get wrecked, artist.
The good team knows the demon type.
Yeah.
Um.
They were going to figure it out anyway. They were going to figure it out off the Flower Girl tomorrow, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they were gonna. And everyone voted. Uh, you know, as the votes on the artist went around, it became apparent what was happening, and the evil team all put their hands up to protect the demon. Like, and why would you mind? Why might you do that?
I mean, if there's, we don't want to be eliminated as demon candidates, right? This is Minion 101, everybody. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. We've said it a few times. Minion 101, you want to be a potential demon candidate. If at any point in the game you are no longer a potential demon candidate, you are no longer useful to the team because you are less likely to get executed than the demon, and that's a problem.
Okay, yeah, and especially when you don't know if there's a flower girl. Well, you were told there was a flower girl in play.
Sure.
By some claimed flower girl. You don't know that for sure. They could be lying to you.
Yeah, but there could be a flower girl anywhere. I mean, there could still be a flower girl on the Grim, even if they're lying.
Yeah, but you really just cannot let your demon be exposed as the only person not to vote on a flower girl day. So when you see everyone's hands shooting up as a minion, you gotta throw your hand up too, so your demon doesn't get exposed.
If flower girl's on the script, you gotta vote when your demon votes. It's just that simple.
Let's talk about what are you thinking as a pit hag in the early game here?
Right now, the crucial part of pit hag is really about communicating with your team. Pit hags have a lot of power. It is a role which I think when people first come to Sects Violets, they think is, holy crap, this is really, really, you could just make anything you want. You can't make anything you want, but you can make a lot of things. The reason you can't make anything you want is because obviously anything that's already in play can't be made, right? So that's an issue. Right now, Generally speaking, pit hags will start the game out considering whether or not to make some outsiders, right? Create some extra outsiders, delete powerful townsfolk roles, change out powerful townsfolk roles for less powerful townsfolk roles, things like that, right? One thing I think you can do with a pit hag that's kind of fun is if there's no juggler in play, or if you think there's no juggler in play, you can make a juggler on someone that you intend to kill or intend to have the team kill, and just put off their death by a day. So, for example, if you know where there's a flower girl and you don't want to kill them tonight, but you want to kill them tomorrow night, or you want to commit to the team killing them tomorrow night, you could turn that flower girl into a juggler. They juggle tomorrow, and then you kill them the next night so they don't get information. So there's things you can do like that. You can also, and this is the more crucial part, and I think probably at this point the part that may be important in this scenario, you can also change your teammates into other things. You can change your teammates into other minions. You could change a witch into a Cerenovus. We didn't get a witch proc today, so we could turn a witch into a Cerenovus, and then we can hide the Cerenovusing from the first day on an evil player. That's a thing we could do. We could turn the demon into another demon. Now that usually comes with a signal from the storyteller of either 2 deaths or no death. This early in the game, it's probably 2 deaths. If we could find a way to simulate a no-death night, if we could coordinate to simulate a no-death night, we might be able to trick the town into thinking it's no longer a Vortox game. So there's a lot of things we can do there as well, and we can certainly hide the pit hagging. That's the more important early in the game, certainly, is to maybe not necessarily reveal that you are in play. Because if you can hold off on revealing that you're in play, you might be able to do more, right? As soon as someone gets changed into an outsider, they're going to come out and say, "Hey, there's a pit hag. I was changed into an outsider." So those are things that you think about as a pit hag.
You also have, of course, Philosopher and Snake Charmer as bluffs, which are
Correct.
very powerful pit hag bluffs because those are townsfolk that make sense for the evil team to be, but probably not this early.
Not this early, yeah. But making a snake charmer on the making an evil snake charmer means that you can move a player from one place to another. Making an evil philosopher means you can do the same kind of thing. You can get an
You
evil
can also
philosopher that
drunk a townsfolk.
drunks a townsfolk if you know that there's one in play. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things you can do with the pit hag. So, all right, so it's night 2, huh?
Yeah, it's night 2. It's your turn to act.
It's night turn 2, and it's my tempo. Um, I need to think about a couple of things. The first thing I need to think about is, do we want this game accelerated? Is this a game that I think needs extra kills from a witch? I didn't. I talked to my witch teammate yesterday, but I didn't necessarily say I was going to pit hag them. But after what happened, I'm trying to decide whether or not it's worth speeding up this game. Which means, is it better to have a witch in play, or is it better to have a Serenovus in play? So I'm tempted to turn the witch into the Serenovus to continue hiding that I am in play. It does give us 2 days of having to hide that a Serenovus is in play on someone. That can be the witch, that can be me, depending on what I've claimed to people today. That can be the demon, right? The demon could hide that, because I believe the Serenovus goes before the pit hag. Yep, they do. So
Yes, that's correct.
here's our night order sheet, folks. Let's always make sure when you're a minion to check your night order sheet so you know what's going to happen, right? So we lose a night of minion effectiveness if we change a minion as the pit hag. Now that town knows that it's a Vortox, I could consider changing the demon into a different demon. That's another thing that I could do. I could, on the very fringe set of worlds, is I could make a good demon, which might be entertaining, but is not something we're going to do now. I think right now, what one of the better things I can do is try to take a townsfolk that has strong information of some kind, or at least a suspected townsfolk, and turn them into an outsider. That's a pretty standard pit hag play, and so from that perspective, I might look at the players in seat 8 and seat 6 who are going to be confirmed tomorrow as being on the same team, and change one of them into an outsider, to make them not want to die. I would probably make a klutz because having a klutz in the game is almost always good for the evil team, especially mid to late game. A barber might not be bad to have as well. But yeah, those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about right now.
Okay. Well, you have to make a choice. And of course, making a choice with imperfect information is always something that happens to the evil team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at this and thinking about is it worth witch confirming players in a Vortox game, right? Because the witch usually confirms players as good when they die, and I think it might be more useful to have a Serenovus in play right now. So I'm actually going to go with the play that hides me, that hides the minions a little bit. It does lose us a day of effectiveness. I'm going to turn the witch into the Serenovus.
Okay, you make the witch into the Serenovus. Alright, you wake up, you learn that C2 died. C2 says, I am the sage. I learned seat 9 and seat 12.
That's bad. That's bad. Because now we've got 4 players on this Grim that are definitely not the demon. They're the 2 players who are confirmed as not the demon by the Seamstress in seat 8 and seat 6, or who are confirmed as being on the same team at least by the Seamstress, which is more likely to be good players. And then, of course, the 2 players who are definitely not the demon in the Sage's Vortox ping between seat 12 and seat 9. So 12, 9, 8, and 6 are unlikely to get killed today, which is bad. Which means that one of myself, the demon, the Serenovus, or one of these 3 seats I don't know much about is going to get killed today. So I actually need to talk to those people probably. I need to talk to the players in seat 10, 7, or 3.
Alright, well, they're all around for you to talk to.
Well, I would love to talk to the player in seat 10.
Alright, you talk to the player in seat 10. They strongly agree it's a Vortox game.
Yeah. Oh, they do strongly agree it's a Vortox game.
Yeah. They say my information. It doesn't necessarily mean it's definitely a Vortox game, but with what went down, it's Vortox.
So they trust the player in seat 5.
Yeah, they say I'm at the Oracle with a 1. Like, none of those people are evil.
Yeah, that sounds right. That probably is a Vortox game, right? I mean, it seems like a Vortox
Yeah.
game. Yeah.
What do you offer them?
I think I'm gonna start. I think I'm gonna start claiming to be the. I mean, I actually have a pretty good amount of information of what's here now. I could fish and try to say that I'm the mathematician, since we just talked about mathematician, and give some weird Vortoxy math numbers. Um, Savant. Savant's a fine bluff, and I don't mind a Savant bluff, but getting a Savant bluff to be useful here is going to be a lot of work.
And you don't want to do a lot of work.
Well, I think I have other things I have to pay attention to now. Something we probably don't talk about all that often is how much time and attention you have to pay to what's going on in the game. And here on Grim Scenarios, of course, we've got lots of time to solve these various different puzzles. But in real life, you only have a certain amount of concentration and a certain amount of effort that you can get together. And I have to craft 2 savant statements for each day, which this is the 3rd day of having to craft savant statements.
Second day, but yes.
The second day of having to craft savant statements. Yeah. So I mean, I could do that. Savant's a great bluff. It's one that I love to use. But I think I might just go math because I can basically just say 1. I'm just a math 1 every night or something, silly like that. Because then, ideally I want to look suspicious later, so that's part of it too.
Talking to mathematicians, you run into seat 3 after you talk to seat 10,
Uh-huh.
who tells you they're mathematicians with straight 0, which makes them a little less convinced this is a Vortox game. They think it probably is, but the math zeros, they say, that's a Fangu number.
I'm gonna say, that's really interesting. I don't think you're the mathematician.
Okay. They say, alright, well, I
This is social play that
am.
we can't simulate, but I might double claim the mathematician at this point.
Alright, and you also wanted to talk to seat 7?
And I need to talk to seat 7 yet.
Okay, seat 7 will tell you that they are the barber.
The barber. All right. Well, that's pretty interesting. Why would you tell why would you tell me the barber?
They say, well, it seems everyone's convinced it's a Vortex game, so I don't have to be worried about Fang-Gu jumping. I think we should probably execute me today so the evil team can't make use of the barber swap in the late game.
Well, that's not a bad idea. Maybe we should do that. That seems like a really strong. That seems like a really strong use of your ability. All right. Well, I might try to look like I'm Sarah Mad today, and just claim to be the mathematician. So I'll probably push on seat 3.
You get back, you push on seat 3.
Mm-hmm.
The barber in seat 7, the seat 7 pushes on themselves. Seat 9 pushes on seat 4. They say they had a dodgy conversation with them, and they think that they're pretty suspicious from not being in either the seamstress or the sage pains. And after all of that, eventually seat 4 is executed and dies.
uh, well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, you've lost your fellow minion.
It's fine.
And like with the evil game, obviously we're not trying to solve the grim. We are just sort of talking about things you can do in these scenarios. So
It's time to change the demon.
it's time to change the demon. Okay.
We're in bad trouble here, and hopefully the demon has as much information as I do about what's going on the grim. I wasn't able to tell the demon about the barber in time yesterday, and there wasn't really a good way for me to signal it unless the barber just literally outed.
No, they literally outed. They said they really wanted to be executed.
The demon might kill them today. If the demon decides to kill them today and swap the two of us, I become the Vortox. The demon becomes the pit hag. It sort of negates the purpose of this exercise, though. So I'm not going to trust that they're going to do that, and instead I'm probably going to. So this is a little awkward because I'm probably now being forced into a line of play. I don't really have a ton of options here. Trusting the demon to make the kill on the barber and then swap us so that I can claim to have been Serenovis mad for 2 days might work, but I don't know if the demon's going to do that. The better choice might be to make a Fang-Gu. Town is going to expect for there to be a demon change now that they know it's Vortox. How much information is left over is a big question, and what people would make is also a big question. I could make a Vigor, hope that the demon picks me, and then that the storyteller chooses to kill 2 players, one of them being me, which results in me still having my ability and then being able to make a Fang-Gu again later. But that's a lot of expectation from the storyteller. I think the best way, so I'm a big fan of controlling our own agency, controlling our own destiny, like making choices that we think will get us closer to the win. Probably at this point, the thing that gets us closer to the win is making a Fang-Gu and letting the demon try to jump to not the barber.
So you turn seed 1 into a Fang-Gu, I suppose.
Yeah,
Then.
I think I have to. I don't really see a whole lot of other lines that are going to make this better for us. Hopefully the Fang-Gu doesn't jump to the barber. Hopefully he's not planning on killing the barber and swapping us tonight. That would be a catastrophe of epic proportions. Unless the storyteller let the barber swap go through and didn't do the jump. Like, there's a lot that can happen. This is the best way for me to ensure that my team continues to be strong. We got to get out of Vortox.
No, and most likely, there's going to be no kills tonight.
Yeah, most likely there's going to be no kills, and then we wake up tomorrow and we're still killing into maybe the barber, maybe seat 3. I'm going to claim to have been Serenovis mad for 2 days, so that's the thing that I can do.
And so you make a Fang-Gu.
I make a Fang-Gu. Yep, that's the typical pit hag play. I would prefer to make a different demon, to be honest, because I don't think it's as expected. But I think making a Nodashi where the Fang-Gu is still makes that player look like the still makes that player look like the demon. We need to make a world where seat 1 isn't the demon anymore, right? That's the world we need to make. Isn't possible as a demon, and we need to kill off 9 and 12 and 8 and 6, but that can happen later.
All right. Well, you wake up the next day. Seat 12 is unsurprisingly dead.
Mm-hmm.
They were very confirmed by the Sage Ping. Or actually, no, they're not dead. Sorry, no one dies that night because you made a demon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seat 6 wants to talk to you.
Sure. Oh, I let everyone know that I think that seat 4 was the Ceranovus, by the way.
Okay. Seat 6 asks you if you are the savant.
Yes, I am the savant.
And they say, okay, that's good to know. You're either the savant or the pit hag, I think, unless I'm now sat next to a known Dashi.
Yep, that seems right. I doubt the evil team would have. I mean, they certainly changed the demon. Obviously, we know that, and I doubt that the evil team would make, would make a static demon at this point. They've probably made a Fangu.
Yeah. They say, do you want to share any of your information?
Um, yes, but I haven't gotten my information from the storyteller yet today, and all of my other information is Vortoxed, so it's all going to be double false. So it's not necessarily useful.
Yeah.
I would probably have been making up savant information, expecting this line of play. I have not been sitting here making up savant information, so we'll just assume that I competently made up some Vortoxy sounding savant information about
Yeah.
the outsider count has been modified. I can do it fast. The outsider count has been modified, or uh, an evil player target an evil player on night 1, and on night 2 or on day 2. Two outsiders are seated adjacent to one another, or um, two evil players are seated adjacent to one another. Yeah, so that's fine. That's just some garbage savant information. And then I have to go visit the storyteller and get savant information.
You do not have to visit the storyteller and get savant information. You've been bullied into the savant bluff.
I've been bullied into my savant bluff.
Almost like the storyteller really wants you to talk about how to craft savant information that helps your team as an evil player.
So after 2 days of not having crafted information that helps my team as an evil player and just making up some garbage, here I am in the situation of now having to make up savant information. Um, this day of savant information has to be pretty strong because it has to be the most believable bit of savant information I give. Also, I am now expecting that I need to eventually become the demon in this game. So that's a whole thing. And the Fangu no longer can kill the barber, which is, again, another whole problem, but we'll deal with that later. So, crafting good savant information as an evil player. The first thing to remember is always that whatever false statement you make is going to be, make sure that you have a false one, because having a false one is really, really important. So something that you know from your understanding of the Grim is almost certainly false. And then something else that leads your team to look good, whether that's you yourself or the demon, right? I've shifted from the minion mode of having to look like a suspect to now having to look like someone who's going to catch the demon later on in this game. Probably by making myself the mutant and letting the Fangu jump to me, or snake charming the demon myself. Depends on which of those two things I need to do.
You probably want to let the demon jump and then snake charm the
Yeah,
new
well,
demon, right?
yeah, that's the ideal. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. So anyway, the information I should probably give today, the false piece of information can confirm that the demon has been changed because everybody already knows anyway. It can confirm that the Vortox is not in play. It can do something that kind of or the true piece of information, excuse me, can do something like that. The false piece of information should be something that's sort of blatantly not true. Let's see. The my fake true piece of information here is that the witch has failed. The witch has targeted a different player every night. That will be the true piece of information, and the false piece of information will be that there is a player who has not used their once per game ability.
You finish talking with the storyteller, and then your demon requests to talk with you.
Yes, let's talk.
They say, thank you for the change.
No problem.
I would like us to make seat 12 the new demon.
You want to make seat 12 the new demon. Okay. Do you know what the other outsider in play is?
They say they don't, but just shoot at seat 12 today. Hope hope you get an out of play outsider. If they die, they die. We can try seat 9 tomorrow if we miss.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. As you're having this conversation, the storyteller suddenly calls everyone back to town,
Okay.
where Seat 8 is saying loudly that they are the mutant, and the storyteller announces they are executed and die.
Well, that's helpful, but I already assumed it was a mutant. Yeah. So why would I
Fair
think that
enough.
there was? Why would I think that it was a mutant in play? Right. Um, Outsiders are incentivized not to come out when it's possible that it's a Fangu game. Um, there were lots of claims of powerful roles and only one claim of an outsider in a game that was known to be a Vortox game. Now the demon has changed. It's almost certainly a Fangu, so that means that the mutant, right, probably wants to come out so that they don't get Fangu jumped, unless they want to get Fangu jumped. But either way, the hidden outsider part of this game was kind of done. So that means that regular outsiders like Sweethearts and Klutzes should definitely have come out. So,
Alright, so this is probably going to be the last night we run, but
yep. We're going to make the Flower Girl into the Sweetheart.
okay, the flower girl is turned. You do that.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up, and of course, Seat 1 is dead.
And the next part of our plan is to turn seat 9 into a klutz.
So we're gonna call this, I think, here, both because we've been recording for a little bit over an hour and 5 minutes, and that's about the length I think we want to shoot. And also because there's not much more. Like, you may win this game, you may lose this game. As we've talked about, like, you may turn yourself into the Snake Charmer or the Philo Snake Charmer at some point if you feel you need to move the demon off seat 12, if you feel you're less likely to be executed.
Yeah, but look how much flexibility I have in what I want to do here. I can make
Mm-hmm.
seat 9 into a klutz. We're almost certainly going to kill seat 9. That forces seat 9 to make a pick, right? I can uh, make seat 6 into a klutz. That's probably an even better choice because seat 6 is the dreamer and get them out of here, actually. So make seat 6 into a klutz. They're still possibly evil. Not really. The mutant's dead, so nope, mutant's confirmed dead, so they're not evil anymore. So yeah, seat 6 has to die, seat 9 has to die. Making one of them a klutz is always going to be a good thing to do. Um, I can make myself into the Philo. I can make myself into the Snake Charmer. I can jump the demon to me. I can make myself into a demon if I had to. Like
Yeah.
I can go back to another potential demon. There's a lot of things I have available to me.
Yeah, and sort of the thing I think I want to emphasize for our viewers here is this was a pretty rough start for evil. Like, the demon type was immediately outed publicly in multiple ways. Like, there was like 3 or 4 information pieces confirming it was Vortox, and we didn't even talk to the dreamer who had jumped 2 people wrong
Yep.
until until it was no longer a Vortox game.
Back to what we said about the artist. You're gonna figure it out. You're gonna figure out it's Vortox. Okay? You're gonna figure it out. You don't need to use your artist question like that.
You quickly lost the Saranovis, who started the game as the witch, without them really having an impact on the game.
Not at all.
Like, it was, but like, the Pit Hag is the flexibility, the extendability engine for Sex and Violets. We're now in a much stronger spot for evil. Now, frankly, a lot of people, seat 1 is probably going to be a known outed Fangu at this point because we do have the Oracle.
Yep.
We know that the Oracle is probably real because they got the Vortox information and they're not on our team.
Yep.
And they're not the mutant.
Our night kills are basically set. We're killing seat 6 and seat
Yeah.
9. We probably
There's
need
a
to kill
very
seat
good
10.
chance that seat 7 is executed today as a Fangu jump.
Yep. That's
Because
almost
you've
certain.
successfully hidden the presence of a pit hag. I think you don't really want a pit hag to be super well known. Though, of course, once seat 7 is executed as the barber.
That's going to be known. So I don't need to worry about it tonight. I needed to keep it secret up until now. Right? Seat 7 gets killed, maybe the demon swaps me, maybe the demon swaps with me. Maybe we swap the barber back into play. Like, there's a lot of
Swap
things.
the barber back. There's a lot you can do. There's a lot of stuff you can do to make tracking down where this Fangu jumped possible. We're not saying that you're going to win this game, but I did want to emphasize sort of how we've sort of pulled evil back from a very bad spot to now a situation where you have an extra evil player. You've killed a bunch of good players off or removed them from the game. It's down to 5 versus 2, which isn't so bad from where you started on 9 versus 3.
Yep. It's still going to be tricky. We're not out of the woods yet, but
you're not out of the woods, but
we've got an extra vote, and that's a big powerful thing about getting a Fangu in play, right? You get an extra vote.
I'm happy with how this scenario played out for you.
I'm happy how it played out too, and I think we've demonstrated a lot of really interesting and useful things about the Pit Hag, hopefully. At least through talking through it, even if we didn't do the things.
Most importantly, the talking to your demon. Like, when you're going to set up the Fangu jump, like, the pit hag and the demon talking so they know where the outsiders are likely to be is important. Like, a lot of times with pit hags, I see them not talk to their demons.
No, gotta talk to the demon. I said that at the beginning too.
Yeah, they just go do their own thing, they play their stuff, they maybe turn their demon to a Fangu when things are looking edgy, but like the demon doesn't know where the outsiders are. Like in the Fangu, in the pit hags making outsiders elsewhere. Like you need like the Sects and Violets minions and demon evil teams work together as a cohesive unit. Like they don't work together. Like in Trouble Brewing, you can sort of go off and do your own things, and sometimes it's sad when you poison the fortune teller the night the demon kills them.
Yep.
But it's never that big a deal. In Sects and Violets, like, not coordinating is a death sentence for the evil team.
I think a broader topic of conversation, which we can start to get into a little bit now that we've kind of gone over the basics of the base threes, is talking a little bit about strategy for teams, especially the evil team, in how you communicate, how often you communicate, when you need to communicate, and when you can get away with kind of intuiting what other players are going to do. Right? We talked especially earlier on about, do you really need to go talk to your minions day one? How useful is it to, talk to minions before any of you have gathered any information? First conversation talking to a minion, it's fine. Nobody's probably tracking who you're talking to. Sometimes people bring that stuff up, but it's not all the time. But when you need to make a big play, you definitely need to talk to your teammates. You definitely need to communicate with the demon if you're a minion, if you're a powerful minion like a pit hag that's setting something like this up, right? You've got to know what they want to do, where they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to use your ability as an evil player on a teammate, maybe let them know you're going to do it so they expect it. Changing a witch into a Cerenovus, that's probably not such a huge thing, and it was probably better for our team to have a Cerenovus instead of a witch anyway, even if it just never affected the game. But when you're gonna make changes that affect your teammates, that are going to affect how they play, gotta let them know. Gotta interact. Gotta coordinate, especially with demon movement, especially with changing the demon, because at this point, also, the player in seat 4, who was previously the witch / Cerenovus, doesn't know who the demon is. They know that the demon has jumped, but they may not vote on the player in seat 7 because they may think, oh crap, my demon jumped to that barber and now they're going to get voted out. Right? They may not know the plan right now. And so they're out on an island a little bit, not really able to contribute to the team because they don't know what's going on. So yeah. Well, that was a fun scenario, Emma. Thanks for that. Thanks for the evil times.
Yeah.
Pit hagging.
We'll be back, of course, next week. Probably doing something different. Probably not Sects Violets. It'll either be a custom or it'll be Trouble Brewing or BMR again.
Time for another little swap out of here and see what else we can find. We've had a few other requests for things to look at, and we might do one or two of those, since they do seem to be holding your attention as an audience.
All right. Anyway, may your scenarios be grim this week.
Indeed.
Goodbye.